A single black dad woke up to see the female CEO wearing his shirt, and her words stunned him. Welcome to True Soul Narratives, where every story carries a heartbeat. Love, betrayal, forgiveness, and the courage to start again. If this story resonates with you, subscribe and leave a like. Now, let's return to the story. Marcus woke up to the smell of coffee and scrambled eggs. His eyes opened slowly, the morning light filtering through the blinds of his small bedroom. For a moment, everything felt normal. Then he heard it, the soft clatter of plates in his kitchen. Someone was in his apartment. He sat up, heart racing, and walked barefoot down the narrow hallway. What he saw stopped him cold. A woman stood at his stove, her back to him, wearing his faded gray t-shirt. Her dark hair was pulled into a messy bun, and she moved around his kitchen like she belonged there. Vanessa, the CEO, the woman who had changed everything. "What are you doing here?" Marcus asked, his voice thick with sleep and confusion. She turned, spatula in hand, and smiled. Not the polished boardroom smile he'd seen before. This one was softer, real. "Making breakfast for my family." Marcus blinked. Family? They barely knew each other. She was his boss, the woman who'd saved his daughter's life just weeks ago. But family? His throat tightened. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came. Vanessa set down the spatula and walked toward him, her bare feet padding across the worn linoleum. "I know you're confused," she said gently, "but let me explain. 12 hours earlier, everything was different. 12 hours earlier, Marcus Williams was a man hanging on by a thread. At 38 years old, he wore exhaustion like a second skin. His hands were calloused from construction work, his eyes shadowed from late nights as a security guard. 2 jobs, 7 days a week, no days off, no breaks. Because breaks cost money, and money was something Marcus never had enough of. But he wasn't doing it for himself. Every dollar, every aching muscle, every sleepless night, it was all for her. Lily, his 7-year-old daughter, the only light in his world. She had his smile, bright and crooked, and her mother's eyes, soft and trusting. Her mother, Grace, had passed away 3 years ago, leaving Marcus to raise Lily alone. He'd promised Grace on her deathbed that he'd give Lily everything. He'd keep her safe. He'd be enough. Most days he wondered if he was keeping that promise. They lived in a modest 2-bedroom apartment on the east side of town. The carpet was stained, the walls needed paint, and the heater rattled like it might give up any day. But it was clean. It was theirs. And Lily never complained. She'd sit at their small kitchen table doing homework while Marcus cooked dinner, usually pasta or rice, something cheap that could stretch for days. She'd tell him about school, about her best friend Emma, about the book she was reading, and Marcus would listen, soaking in every word, because those moments made everything worth it. But Lily had asthma, bad asthma, the kind that sent them to the emergency room twice a year, sometimes more. Marcus kept her inhaler close, made sure she avoided triggers, watched her like a hawk. Still the attacks came, sudden, terrifying, life-threatening. That Tuesday afternoon, Marcus was 40 feet up on a scaffold, securing steel beams under the brutal September sun. His phone buzzed in his pocket. He almost ignored it. Calls during work usually meant trouble. But something made him check. It was Lily's school. His stomach dropped. "Mr. Williams, Lily's having an asthma attack. We've called 911. They're taking her to Mercy Hospital." The world tilted. Marcus didn't remember climbing down, didn't remember telling his foreman he had to leave. He just ran. His truck roared to life, and he tore through traffic, hands gripping the wheel so tight his knuckles turned white. Please, God. Please. Not her. Not my baby. He reached the hospital in 15 minutes, a drive that should have taken 30. He abandoned his truck in the fire lane and sprinted through the automatic doors, his work boots echoing on the tile floor. "Lily Williams," he gasped at the front desk. "My daughter, where is she?" The nurse directed him to the pediatric wing. He ran again, his heart hammering against his ribs. When he burst through the door, he saw her. Lily, small and fragile on the hospital bed, an oxygen mask covering half her face. Her chest rose and fell in shallow, labored breaths. A doctor stood beside her, checking monitors. "Dad!" Lily's voice was muffled, but she reached for him. Marcus grabbed her hand, his vision blurring with tears. "I'm here, baby. I'm here. You're okay. You are gonna be okay." The doctor, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes, pulled him aside. "Mr. Williams, Lily's stable for now, but she needs a nebulizer treatment, and we'd like to keep her overnight for observation. We'll also need to update her medication. The attack was severe." Marcus nodded, barely processing the words. "Whatever she needs, just do it." The doctor hesitated. "We'll need your insurance information." His stomach clenched. Insurance. Right. He fumbled for his wallet, pulled out a crumpled card. The doctor took it, stepped away to the computer, then returned with a frown. "Mr. Williams, this policy was canceled last month." "What?" Marcus's voice cracked. No, 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 no. He'd paid it. He was sure he'd paid it. But then he remembered. The car repair, the unexpected expense. He'd chosen between the payment and keeping the lights on. He'd chosen wrong. "Do you have another form of payment?" the doctor asked gently. Marcus pulled out his credit card, his only credit card, the one already maxed out from last month's emergency room visit. He handed it over anyway, praying for a miracle. The nurse ran it, declined. Marcus's voice failed him. He looked back at Lily, still struggling to breathe, and something inside him shattered. "How much?" "The overnight stay and treatment will be around $4,800. The number hit him like a fist to the chest. He didn't have $4,800. He didn't have $800. He had $200 as his checking account, and that was supposed to last until Friday. His hands trembled. His vision swam. He couldn't breathe. Lily needed help, and he couldn't give it to her. I'll figure it out," he whispered. "Just please, help her. Please." The doctor nodded slowly. "We'll start the treatment. But Mr. Williams, we'll need to discuss payment arrangements." Marcus stumbled out into the hallway, his legs barely holding him. He sank against the wall, sliding down until he was sitting on the cold floor, head in his hands. For the first time in 3 years, Marcus Williams broke. Completely. He sobbed, shoulders shaking, the weight of everything crushing down on him. He was failing. Failing Lily, failing Grace, failing himself. "Excuse me." The voice was soft, uncertain. Marcus looked up, quickly wiping his eyes. A woman stood a few feet away. She was Asian, mid-30s, dressed in an expensive navy suit that screamed money and power. Her dark hair was pulled back, her posture straight, but her eyes held something he didn't expect. Compassion. "I'm sorry," Marcus said, his voice rough. He tried to stand, to pull himself together. "I didn't mean to." "Don't apologize," the woman said, stepping closer. "Are you okay?" Marcus almost laughed. Was he okay? No, he wasn't okay. He was drowning, but he didn't say that. Instead, he straightened his shoulders, forced his voice steady. "I'm fine. Just a rough day." She didn't look convinced. "Is someone you love in there?" "My daughter." His voice cracked despite his best effort. "She's 7. Asthma attack." The woman's expression softened even more. She glanced toward Lily's room, then back at him. "I'm sure she'll be fine. Kids are stronger than we think." Marcus nodded, but he couldn't hold her gaze. He felt exposed, raw, and he hated it. He hated that this stranger, this woman in her perfect suit, was seeing him at his lowest. "I don't need charity," he said suddenly, more harshly than he intended. The woman raised an eyebrow, a small smile tugging at her lips. "Good, because I don't give it." She paused, her eyes studying him carefully. "But I do help people who deserve it." Before Marcus could respond, she walked away, her heels clicking against the tile. He watched her go, confused and too exhausted to think about what she'd meant. He returned to Lily's room, sat beside her bed, and held her small hand as the nebulizer hissed softly. An hour later, the same doctor returned. This time, her expression was different, almost relieved. Mr. Williams, there's been a development. Your daughter's treatment has been covered. Marcus frowned. What? By who? A donor requested to remain anonymous. All of Lily's expenses have been paid in full. He stared at her, stunned. I don't understand. But even as he said it, his mind flashed back to the woman in the hallway, the one in the navy suit. No, it couldn't be, could it? Marcus left Lily in the care of the nurses and ran to the hospital lobby, his eyes scanning the crowd. There, by the entrance, the woman was walking toward the parking lot. He sprinted after her, catching up just as she reached a sleek black car. Wait, he called. She turned, unsurprised, as if she'd been expecting him. You paid for my daughter's treatment, didn't you? Marcus demanded, his voice shaking with a mix of gratitude and anger. She didn't deny it. Yes. Why? She tilted her head, considering him. Because you needed help, and because I could. I'll pay you back, Marcus said firmly, his pride flaring. Every cent. I don't care how long it takes. The woman studied him for a long moment, then smiled, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. I don't doubt that you will. She reached into her purse and pulled out a business card. My name is Vanessa Chen. I'm the CEO of Novatech Solutions, and I have a proposition for you. Marcus took the card, his hand still trembling. A proposition? Come work for me, Vanessa said simply. Fair wage, full benefits, good insurance for you and your daughter. No handouts, just honest work for honest pay. He stared at her, suspicious. People didn't just do this. There had to be a catch. Why would you offer me a job? You don't even know me. Vanessa's expression softened. I know enough. I see a man who works 2 jobs to provide for his daughter. A man who won't give up even when everything's falling apart. That's the kind of person I want on my team. She paused. Think about it. Call me when you're ready. She got into her car and drove away, leaving Marcus standing in the parking lot, her business card in his hand and 1,000 questions in his mind. If this story is already pulling at your heart, don't forget to subscribe. We're just getting started, and trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. What would you do if a stranger offered to change your life? Would you accept, or would pride get in the way? Let us know in the comments. Marcus accepted the job, not because he trusted Vanessa, not because he believed in miracles, but because Lily needed insurance. The next Monday, he walked through the glass doors of Novatech Solutions wearing his only dress shirt and carrying a lunch he'd packed at 5 a.m. The building was sleek, modern, filled with people who looked like they belonged in a world Marcus had only seen on television. He felt out of place immediately. His new role was facility manager. He'd oversee maintenance, manage building operations, coordinate with contractors. It was honest work, the kind Marcus knew how to do. But it was also a far cry from the construction sites and security desks he was used to. Still, he showed up early, stayed late, and worked harder than anyone else. Because that's what he did. That's who he was. Vanessa watched him from the 4th floor. She'd stand by her office window, coffee in hand, and observe as Marcus moved through the building. He fixed a broken elevator on his 2nd day, reorganized the supply closets by the end of the week, stayed after hours to repaint the break room because he noticed the walls were scuffed. He didn't ask for permission. He just did it. And Vanessa noticed. She noticed everything. The other employees noticed too. Whispers started in the break room, quiet conversations that stopped when Marcus walked by. Why was the CEO so interested in the new facility manager? Why did she ask about him in meetings? Why did her eyes follow him whenever he passed her office? Marcus heard the rumors, felt the stares, but he kept his head down. He wasn't here to make friends. He was here to provide for his daughter. That was all that mattered. He remained professional, polite, distant. When Vanessa said good morning, he nodded and kept walking. When she asked how he was settling in, he gave short, clipped answers. Fine, thank you. He didn't want her charity, didn't want her pity, and he certainly didn't want to be the subject of office gossip. So he built walls, high ones, and he refused to let her in. But Vanessa understood walls. She'd built plenty of her own. She'd grown up in a rundown apartment on the south side of the city. Her mother, Lin Chen, had immigrated from China with nothing but a suitcase and a dream. She worked 3 jobs, cleaning offices at night, waitressing during the day, and taking and sewing on weekends. Vanessa remembered her mother's hands, always red and raw, calloused from years of labor. She remembered the way Lynn would come home at midnight, exhausted but still sit with Vanessa to help with homework, still make sure there was food on the table, still smile even when everything hurt. Lynn died when Vanessa was 16, a heart attack. The doctor said it was stress, exhaustion, years of pushing herself beyond her limits. Vanessa had been the one to find her, collapsed in the kitchen, still wearing her work uniform. She'd screamed for help, called 911, held her mother's hand as the paramedics tried to save her. But it was too late. Lin Chen was gone, and Vanessa was alone. She'd spent the next decade building an empire. Not for herself, for her mother. Every late night, every business deal, every success, it was all for Lin. To prove that her sacrifice hadn't been in vain. To honor the woman who'd given everything so her daughter could have a chance. And when Vanessa saw Marcus, when she saw him breaking down in that hospital hallway, she didn't see a stranger. She saw herself. She saw her mother. She saw what it meant to love someone so much that you'd destroy yourself to keep them safe. That's why she'd paid the hospital bills. That's why she'd offered him a job. Not out of pity, out of recognition. Because she understood. 3 weeks into Marcus's new job, Lily's babysitter canceled at the last minute. Marcus panicked. He couldn't miss work, not this early, not when he was still proving himself. So he brought Lily with him. She sat quietly in his small office on the first floor, coloring in a notebook he'd bought her, her backpack at her feet. Marcus checked on her every 20 minutes, guilt gnawing at him. This wasn't right. She should be at home, safe, not sitting in some office because he couldn't afford proper childcare. Vanessa was walking through the building reviewing reports when she heard humming, soft, sweet, coming from the break room. She followed the sound and found Lily sitting at one of the tables, surrounded by crayons and paper. The little girl was drawing a picture, a house with a big sun and 2 stick figures holding hands. "Hi," Vanessa said gently, stepping into the room. Lily looked up, startled, then smiled. "Hi, are you the boss lady?" Vanessa laughed, the sound genuine and warm. "I suppose I am. What are you drawing?" "Me and my dad," Lily said proudly, holding up the picture. "This is our house. Well, not our real house, our dream house. Dad says one day we'll have a big yard and a dog." Vanessa's chest tightened. She sat down across from Lily, her expensive suit a stark contrast to the bright plastic chairs. "That sounds like a wonderful dream." Lily studied her for a moment, her young eyes far too perceptive. "My dad says you're an angel. He didn't say it to me, but I heard him on the phone. He told Uncle Ray that an angel saved us." Vanessa felt something crack inside her. She reached across the table and gently touched Lily's hand. "Your dad is wrong, sweetheart. I'm not an angel. I'm just someone who understands." "Understands what?" Lily asked, tilting her head. "What it's like to need help, and what it's like to be too proud to ask for it." Lily seemed to consider this, then smiled, a smile so bright and pure it nearly broke Vanessa's heart. "Well, I think you're nice and pretty. Do you want to color with me?" Vanessa glanced at her watch. She had a meeting in 10 minutes, a conference call with investors. But she looked at Lily, at this little girl who just called her nice and pretty, and she made a choice. "I'd love to." They colored together for the next half hour. Vanessa drew a terrible-looking dog that made Lily giggle uncontrollably. Lily told her about school, about her best friend Emma, about how her dad made the best mac and cheese in the world. And Vanessa listened, really listened, soaking in every word. Marcus found them like that. He'd been searching for Lily, panic rising when he couldn't find her in his office. When he stepped into the break room and saw his daughter sitting with Vanessa Chen, the CEO of the company, coloring like they were old friends, something inside him shifted. The walls he'd built so carefully began to crack. "Lily," he said, his voice tight, "you shouldn't bother Miss Chen." "She's not bothering me," Vanessa said quickly, standing. "We were just drawing. She's very talented." Marcus looked at his daughter, then at Vanessa, and for the first time, he didn't see the powerful CEO. He saw a woman who'd taken time out of her day to sit with a 7-year-old and make her feel special. He saw kindness, real kindness, and it terrified him. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for spending time with her." Vanessa smiled, that same soft smile that reached her eyes. "It was my pleasure." As she walked away, Lily tugged on Marcus's sleeve. "Dad, I really like her. Can she come over for dinner sometime?" Marcus didn't answer. He couldn't, because the truth was, he liked her too, and that scared him more than anything. 2 weeks later, Marcus was working late again. It was past 9 and the building was nearly empty. He was in the basement, fixing a leak in one of the pipes, when he heard footsteps on the stairs. He looked up, surprised, and saw Vanessa. She'd traded her suit jacket for a cardigan. Her hair was down, and she looked tired, human. "You're still here," she said, leaning against the doorway. "So are you," Marcus replied, wiping grease off his hands. She smiled. "Touché." She hesitated, then stepped further into the room. "Can I ask you something?" Marcus tensed. "Sure." "Why do you work so hard? I mean, I know why. For Lily. But it's more than that, isn't it?" He stared at her, caught off guard by the question. No one had ever asked him that before. "I don't know how to do anything else," he admitted. "After my wife died, work was the only thing that made sense. If I stopped moving, if I stopped trying, I'd fall apart. And I can't fall apart. Not when Lily needs me." Vanessa nodded slowly, her eyes glistening. "My mother worked 3 jobs. She died when I was 16. Exhaustion, the doctor said. But I knew the truth. She worked herself to death trying to give me a better life." Her voice cracked. "And for years I hated myself for it, for not stopping her, for not being enough." Marcus's chest tightened. He took a step toward her. "You were a kid. It wasn't your fault." "I know that now," Vanessa said softly. "But it took a long time to believe it. I built this company for her. To prove that her sacrifice meant something. To honor her memory." She looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. "When I saw you in that hospital, I saw her. I saw myself, and I couldn't walk away." Marcus stood there, frozen, his own eyes burning. For the first time since Grace died, he felt seen, truly seen. Not as a charity case, not as someone to pity, but as someone who mattered. "You didn't save me, Vanessa," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You reminded me I could save myself." She smiled through her tears. "That's the point." They stood there in the dim basement light, the air between them charged with something unspoken, something real. Marcus felt his walls crumbling, piece by piece, and for the first time in years, he didn't try to rebuild them. He just let them fall. Human everything changed on a Thursday morning. Marcus was in the supply room cataloging inventory when he heard voices in the hallway. Board members. He recognized the tone, sharp and businesslike, the kind of conversation that happened behind closed doors. He wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but the door was cracked and their voices carried. "Vanessa paid his hospital bills," one of them said, a man Marcus vaguely recognized from the executive floor. "Thousands of dollars. Out of her own pocket." "That's a conflict of interest," another voice chimed in, female, cold. "She hired him right after. It looks bad. It looks like favoritism." "Or worse," the first voice said with a sneer. "Maybe she's involved with him. Wouldn't be the first time a CEO made questionable decisions for personal reasons." Marcus's blood ran cold. His hands tightened around the clipboard he was holding, his knuckles white. They were talking about him, about Vanessa, about something pure and twisted into something ugly. "She's being naive," the woman continued. "He's clearly using her. A single dad with a sick kid." He saw an opportunity and took it. Can't blame him, really, but it reflects poorly on her judgment. Marcus didn't hear the rest. He dropped the clipboard and walked out, his chest tight, his mind racing. Using her. They thought he was using her. The words burned like acid, cutting through every ounce of pride he had left. He wasn't a user. He wasn't a leech. He worked for everything he had. But now, because of Vanessa's kindness, because she'd helped him when he had nothing, people thought he was taking advantage of her. The rumors spread fast. By lunch, the whispers had reached every corner of the building. Marcus felt eyes on him wherever he went. Pity, judgment, suspicion. He hated it. Hated all of it. And worse, he hated that Vanessa was being dragged into it. Her reputation, everything she'd built, was being questioned because of him. He became cold, distant. When Vanessa passed him in the hallway and smiled, he looked away. When she stopped by his office to ask how he was doing, he gave one-word answers. He couldn't look at her, couldn't face her, because every time he did, he heard those voices. He's using her. She's being naive. Vanessa noticed. Of course she did. She wasn't blind. She saw the way Marcus avoided her, the way he shut down whenever she tried to talk. It hurt, more than she wanted to admit, but she didn't push. She gave him space, hoping he'd come to her when he was ready. Finally, one evening, she cornered him in the parking lot. He was heading to his truck, his shoulders hunched, his face hard. Marcus, wait. He stopped but didn't turn around. Talk to me, Vanessa said, her voice pleading. Please, what's going on? Marcus finally turned, and the look on his face made her heart sink. It was anger, pain, shame, all wrapped into one. I won't be anyone's charity case, Vanessa, or office scandal. What are you talking about? She asked, stepping closer. The board, the employees, everyone thinks I'm using you, that you made a mistake hiring me, that we're... He couldn't finish the sentence. I can't do this. I can't be the reason people question you. Vanessa's chest tightened. I don't care what they think. Well, I do, Marcus said, his voice rising. I care because it's my fault. I never should have taken the job, never should have let you help me. I should have stayed where I belonged. And where's that, Marcus? Vanessa shot back, her own frustration bubbling over. Struggling? Barely surviving? You think that's where you belong. At least there I had my dignity. The words hung in the air between them, sharp and cutting. Vanessa's eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them back. If you want to leave, I won't stop you, she said quietly. But don't you dare say it's because you don't belong. You belong wherever you decide you belong. And if you decide that's not here, then fine. But own that decision. Don't blame me for trying to help you. Marcus said nothing. He just got in his truck and drove away, leaving Vanessa standing alone in the parking lot, her heart breaking. For the next 2 weeks, Marcus kept his distance. He did his job, nothing more. He avoided Vanessa completely. And every night when he went home to Lily, he felt the weight of his decision crushing him. But his pride wouldn't let him go back. Wouldn't let him admit that maybe, just maybe, he'd made a mistake. Then, on a cold October night, everything fell apart. Again, Marcus was at home, making dinner, when Lily started coughing. At first, it was just a tickle, nothing serious, but then it got worse. Her breathing became shallow, labored. Panic seized him. He grabbed her inhaler, but it didn't help. Her lips were turning blue. Lily, stay with me, baby, Marcus said, his voice shaking as he scooped her into his arms and ran for the truck. He drove like a man possessed, one hand on the wheel, the other holding Lily's hand. You're okay. You're going to be okay. Just breathe, baby. Please, just breathe. They reached the hospital and Marcus burst through the emergency room doors, shouting for help. Nurses rushed over, took Lily from his arms, disappeared behind double doors. And Marcus was left standing there, alone, his hands shaking, his mind spinning. Not again. Please, God, not again. He collapsed into a chair in the waiting room, his head in his hands. He wanted to call someone, anyone. But who? He had no family, no close friends. Just Lily, and she was fighting for her life behind those doors. He was alone, completely, utterly alone. And then at 2 a.m, he heard footsteps. Fast, hurried. He looked up and his breath caught. Vanessa. She was still in her business clothes, her hair messy, her eyes wide with worry. She must have come straight from the office. Marcus, she breathed, rushing to him. How did you... He started, but his voice broke. The hospital called me, she said, sitting beside him. I'm still listed as an emergency contact from before. I came as soon as I heard." Marcus stared at her, and something inside him shattered. All the pride, all the walls, all the anger, it crumbled in an instant. He broke, completely. Tears streamed down his face and he buried his head in his hands. "I can't do this alone," he choked out. "I can't. I thought I could, but I can't." Vanessa didn't hesitate. She wrapped her arms around him, pulling him close, holding him as he sobbed. "You don't have to," she whispered, her own tears falling. "You don't have to do this alone. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." Marcus clung to her like she was the only thing keeping him from drowning. And maybe she was. Because in that moment he realized something he'd been too proud, too scared to admit. He needed her. Not her money, not her help, her. Vanessa. The woman who saw him, truly saw him, and didn't turn away. They sat there together, holding each other in the sterile waiting room, as the hours dragged on. And when the doctor finally came out and said Lily was stable, that she'd be okay, Marcus turned to Vanessa and said the words he should have said weeks ago. "I'm sorry. For pushing you away, for being too proud to see what was right in front of me." Vanessa cupped his face, her thumb brushing away his tears. "You have nothing to apologize for. You were scared. I understand." "I don't deserve you," Marcus whispered. "Maybe not," Vanessa said with a soft smile. "But you're stuck with me anyway." And that brought them back to this morning, to Marcus waking up in his own bed, sunlight streaming through the blinds, the smell of coffee and eggs filling his small apartment. To the moment he walked into his kitchen and saw Vanessa standing at his stove, wearing his faded gray t-shirt, her hair pulled back, looking like she belonged there. After they'd left the hospital in the early morning hours, Lily stable and sleeping peacefully, Marcus had insisted Vanessa come back to the apartment. She'd been at the hospital all night, hadn't slept, and he couldn't let her drive home exhausted. He'd given her one of his shirts and a pair of sweatpants, told her to take his bed while he slept on the couch. But when he woke up, she wasn't in his room. She was here, in his kitchen, making breakfast. "What did you mean?" Marcus asked now, his voice still rough with sleep. "When you said you were making breakfast for your family?" Vanessa set down the spatula and turned to face him fully. For the first time since he'd known her, she looked vulnerable, uncertain. The powerful CEO who commanded boardrooms and built empires was gone. In her place was just a woman who'd spent the night at a hospital, who'd held him while he broke down, who'd stayed when any sane person would have walked away. "I meant," she paused, searching for the right words. "I meant I want this to be my family, if you'll let me." Marcus's breath caught. He stared at her, stunned into silence. Family. The word echoed in his mind, heavy and hopeful and terrifying all at once. Vanessa took a step toward him, her eyes never leaving his. "I know this is fast. I know we barely know each other in some ways. But Marcus, when I'm with you, when I'm with Lily, I feel something I haven't felt since my mother died. I feel like I'm home." Her voice cracked. "I'm not asking for charity. I'm not asking you to owe me anything. I'm asking for a chance to be part of your life, part of Lily's life, a chance to build something real." Marcus felt his throat tighten, his eyes burning. He'd spent so long protecting himself, protecting Lily, keeping everyone at arm's length because letting people in meant risking more loss, more pain. But standing here, looking at Vanessa, he realized something. Love wasn't about protection. It was about trust. And he trusted her. He trusted her with his heart, with his daughter, with everything he had. He crossed the small kitchen in 3 strides and cupped her face in his hands. Her skin was soft, warm, and when she looked up at him, he saw tears streaming down her cheeks. "You already had my respect," Marcus said, his voice low and thick with emotion. "My gratitude. But now you have something else." "What's that?" Vanessa whispered. "My heart." And then he kissed her, soft at first, tentative, like he was afraid she might disappear. But when she kissed him back, when her hands came up to rest on his chest, he deepened it. poured everything he couldn't say into that kiss. All the fear, the hope, the love he'd been too scared to admit. It wasn't desperate or rushed. It was gentle, real, earned. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were crying, both of them smiling. Vanessa laughed, a sound so pure and joyful it made Marcus's chest ache. "So, is that a yes?" she asked. "That's a yes," Marcus said, pulling her close, resting his forehead against hers. "To all of it. To family. To us." From the doorway, a small voice said, "Does this mean Vanessa's staying?" They both turned to see Lily standing there in her pajamas, her hair a mess, a sleepy smile on her face. Marcus laughed, the sound light and free. "Yeah, baby, she's staying." Lily ran to them and Vanessa scooped her up, holding her tight. The three of them stood there in that tiny kitchen, wrapped in each other's arms, and for the first time in years, Marcus felt complete. 3 months later, the park was alive with laughter and color. Balloons tied to picnic tables swayed in the breeze, and the smell of grilled hot dogs filled the air. It was Lily's 8th birthday, and she was running around with her friends, her face painted like a butterfly, her laughter ringing out like music. Marcus stood by the grill, flipping burgers, a smile he couldn't wipe off his face. Vanessa walked up beside him, carrying a tray of drinks, and he noticed immediately. She was wearing his shirt, the same faded gray t-shirt she'd worn that morning in his kitchen. It had become their thing, a quiet tradition. She'd wear it on lazy Sunday mornings, on movie nights when they curled up on the couch, on days when she just wanted to feel close to him. "You know," Marcus said, wrapping an arm around her waist, "you could have worn something nicer for the party." Vanessa grinned, leaning into him. "I like this one. It smells like you." He kissed the top of her head, his heart swelling. They'd moved in together a month ago. Vanessa had insisted on keeping Marcus's modest apartment at first, not wanting to pressure him, but eventually they'd found a small house with a yard. Nothing extravagant, just enough space for the three of them. And a door. Lily had gotten her wish. "Dad, Vanessa," Lily called, running over, her face flushed with excitement. "Can we do the cake now?" "In a minute, baby," Marcus said. But then Lily looked up at Vanessa, her big eyes serious. "Vanessa, are you staying forever?" The question hung in the air, and Marcus felt his chest tighten. He looked at Vanessa, and she looked back at him, her eyes soft and full of love. Marcus squeezed Vanessa's hand. "If she wants to." Vanessa knelt down so she was eye level with Lily. She brushed a strand of hair out of the little girl's face and smiled, the kind of smile that came from deep within. "Forever sounds perfect." Lily threw her arms around Vanessa's neck, and Marcus watched, his vision blurring with tears he didn't bother to hide. This was everything. This was family. Not because of blood or obligation, but because of choice. Because three broken people had found each other and decided to build something whole. As the sun began to set, casting golden light over the park, Marcus pulled Vanessa close and whispered, "Thank you." "For what?" she asked, looking up at him. "For reminding me that it's okay to let people in. That I don't have to do everything alone." Vanessa smiled, her eyes shining. "You never have to be alone again." And in that moment, surrounded by laughter and love, Marcus believed her. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is accept help from someone who truly cares. Marcus spent so long thinking he had to carry the weight of the world on his own that asking for help made him weak. But real strength isn't about doing everything alone. It's about knowing when to let someone stand beside you. It's about trust. It's about love. And sometimes it's about a stranger in a hospital hallway who sees you at your lowest and decides you're worth saving. What would you have done in Marcus's position? Would you have accepted Vanessa's help? Or would pride have kept you from letting her in? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to True Soul Narratives. We bring you stories that remind you what it means to be human, to struggle, to hope, and to love. Hit that subscribe button and join our family, because everyone deserves a story that speaks to their soul. Until next time, stay kind, stay strong, and remember, you're never as alone as you think.